Yes, of course. It sometimes differs from one show to another, but a couple of things are true of all. That you don't start out, at least I don't, with what it's going to look like. You start out with how well it works. And you develop a floor plan which shows all of the actor movements and the elevations and location of windows and doors and all that sort of thing. Then I move to an elevation, flat, not perspective, but just a sense of how the shapes will appear on the stage. Not gotten into color yet at this stage, obviously, not for me at least. And then I develop a model. That's to help both the actors and the director. I've worked with a lot of directors over the years that cannot visualize anything from a floor plan, how it's going to look in 3 dimensions. And so I build a model so there's no question about that, how it's going to look. And then Brian and Greg come in and actually put it on stage.
And because I've built a number of John's sets and have acted on them, is that attention to detail and the how things work backstage that the audience never sees, which is what that method will help to achieve.
I've designed about 250 and worked on probably 400. If I had only done 10, I could pick one out of the 10. It's a little hard with 250. But to give you an answer, I've designed Streetcar Named Desire 3 or 4 times over the years. 2 of those times I would put on some of my all-time favorite lists. Completely different designs in different theaters, different times. The first one I did was, 55 years ago or something. It was rather impressionistic. I was just out of graduate school and experimenting. The other time I did it was only a few years ago, more all the time, maybe 15 years ago. And it was on a bigger stage and momentous, and there was, structurally, we had balconies because it takes place in New Orleans. We had those famous iron balconies overhead and all of that sort of thing. So those 2 I would just single out. Up here, a set I did for not the Maskers, but the Mid-Coast Actors Studio at Troy Howard, of all places, which has a decent stage, but limited. And that was for Osage County. What's the?
August,
Osage County. Yeah. And that was very special. And the cast was special. It was a great production.
Thank you. I just had a little part.
Except that guy that was only in the beginning.
Yeah. I, again, don't have the formal training, and I didn't start really doing this till later in life, but I was between here and in southern England, where I lived, designed maybe 20, and have built better than 50 put-ins and whatnot. I did have one favorite I did in England. It was On an Average Day by John Bielenberg, and it was a hyper-realistic American rural setting, and coming up, one of the main characters, it was a two-hander, but one of the main characters was an American refrigerator, an antique, and finding it in southern England and all the other parts and Chicago newspapers and all that sort of thing was a challenge which turned out, I thought, I enjoyed. Yeah. Yes. Now that I've said it has to work for the actors,
my favorite features are the windows, the two big windows and columns, or the towers, because I wanted the audience to get a little sense of the kind of building this is in. And a lot of asylums, especially back in the day, were in these old Victorian, gray, weathered buildings, and so I wanted the towers. But also, it's a static set. It's a single set show, and the audience is going to be looking at the same thing for a couple of hours. The one thing we can change is the lighting, and the one major feature we can change in lighting is what's outside. Is it night? Is it day? So there's realistic lighting that will show through the windows, and for that purpose, we had to build light towers behind the audience will never see, but the lighting designer has those to shine the light on so it won't spill anyplace else but in the windows. But I expect that the director and lighting designer will go along with some ways of having some surreal effects at the windows too. When a single actor is on stage and there's a voiceover monologue or something, then we don't have to have realistic colors. We can do things back there. And that's the change that will occur as the play went on. And that was one of the things that Meg, the director, had said from the start. She didn't recommend that it be a window feature, but she wanted something to change, as you go from the beginning of the show to the other. And lighting designer plays a big role in that. And the set will never look as good. Sometimes in the past, when I built the set, and I'd sit and look at it on the, let's say, day of the first technical or the first dress rehearsal, really first dress rehearsal, I'd sit out in the audience and there's something missing. And then the actors come in with their full costumes, and the lights go up, and the work lights go out, and the stage lights come up, and that's it. That's what I didn't forget something, except what the others were bringing to it. I mean, it's a standard concept in theater that it's a very collaborative art, and it's certainly true when it comes to the visual production. So if you work with good lighting, set, costume designers, props people, even the furniture, makes a difference, a huge difference. So,
one of the features that I've gotten kind of a kick out of is the marvelous paint job that John and Elaine have done, and I've got a kick out of people walking up to the wall and rubbing their hand down it, because it's the tiling is so realistic looking, but it's all done with paint, and I get a bit of a chuckle when as many people as I've seen be fooled by it.
Well, oddly enough, the pandemic has helped us in a number of ways. One thing, it gave us a lot more time. We could have been finished on time, but it would have taken a push. So not only did I have more time to build and paint, but we didn't have to put it in one day. We could put it in one day a week for 4 or 5 weeks, which is exactly, what we did. It didn't hurt us because the Maskers own their own theater. So if we had put it in one of those other spaces and the pandemic hit, they would say, this all has to go. And in this case, we didn't face that. And the added benefit is that the actors, from the very first rehearsal in January, are going to be working on a completed set. And I don't know when, if ever, that ever occurs. Usually actors work with tapes on the floor for 6 weeks before they have a door, an actual door to handle. So it's been, oddly beneficial. They've lost a couple of cast members, which is not beneficial, of course, because they weren't available 6 months later. It's surprising that the delay has been that long, but of course, as we know, the surge is worse every day, so we're hoping we can open in March, but we're not sure.
Yeah, as far as building it, I've thoroughly enjoyed having the time to find exactly what I want for this, or hanging the doors properly rather than quick, or something like that. So yeah, the time is a plus. And the old Maskers, I used to work on the railroad building sets, and as an actor too, the room would be being built around you each time you came. It was a little bit further along, and it not only worked for your timing, with how far it is from window to door, however my lines fit and whatnot, but you just felt like this house was being built around you. So by the time you did your final show, you lived there. So that's the plus of having it, like you say, owned by the Maskers. But if anything good can come out of this COVID, it's one small good thing.
Yeah, it's the other benefit.